She arrived at the mansion as nothing more than a quiet maid, cleaning floors and serving meals. No one cared to know her name, and everyone assumed she was just another poor girl desperate for work. But beneath her humble smile was a truth so shocking, it would tear apart the family she served and change her life forever. You know, sometimes a single moment can change everything. And that night, in a quiet little French restaurant called Louvre, it all began with a dance. The place was alive with soft music and the gentle clinking of cutlery. Waiters in crisp uniforms moved between tables, and the smell of fresh baguettes floated through the air. But in one corner, a small boy sat with his father, his eyes fixed not on the food, but on the open space near the band. His name was Julien Marchand. He was just 11 years old, with a mop of dark curls and a shy smile that rarely showed. Metal braces hugged both his legs. Each step he took in life a slow, squeaking challenge. But when the band began playing a slow waltz, something lit up in his eyes. Across the room, he saw her, a young waitress named Amara. She moved with an easy grace, weaving between tables with a tray balanced perfectly in her hands. She was beautiful, yes, but more than that, she had a calm, warm presence that seemed to make even the busiest room feel safe. Julien's fingers tightened around the handle of his fork. He looked up at his father, then back at Amara, and finally, he gathered his courage. When Amara came near their table, Julien's voice trembled. "Would you," he paused, "would you dance with me?" For a moment, Amara froze. She glanced at the boy's father, a tall man in a tailored suit, his expression unreadable. Then she looked at the boy's braces, and back into his eyes. She smiled. "Yes," she said softly, "I would love to." But just as she stepped back to remove her apron, a sharp voice cut through the music. It was her manager. "Amara, no, you're on shift. Back to work." The restaurant seemed to hold its breath. Amara turned slowly, handed the tray to another waiter, and without another word, walked to Julien. She held out her hand. The boy's face lit up like sunrise. The first step was hard. The braces squeaked loudly, each movement heavy and uncertain. But Amara matched his pace, swaying gently to the rhythm as if nothing else existed. The band, sensing the moment, played softer. Conversations faded to whispers. And in that small open space, they danced, not perfectly, not quickly, but with a connection so real, you could feel it in your chest. From his seat, Etienne Marchand watched in silence. He was a man who rarely showed emotion, but his mind drifted back to a voice from years ago, his late wife's voice. "It's not about perfection," she had told him once. "It's about connection." When the song ended, Amara knelt so she was at Julien's height. "Thank you for the dance," she whispered. Julien grinned shyly. "Thank you for saying yes." The next day, Etienne requested to see Amara in his office, a glass-walled corner room overlooking the city. "I want to hire you," he said. "Not here, not as a waitress. I want you to work with my son. Be his therapeutic companion." Amara's smile was polite, but her answer was firm. "No, Mr. Marchand. That's not my path." She reached into her bag, pulled out a folded flyer, and placed it on his desk. It read, "Pa Libres, Free Steps. Dance Therapy for Children with Physical Challenges. If you want to help him," she said, "bring him here." And with that, she turned and walked away. Etienne sat in silence, staring at the flyer. He didn't know it yet, but that little piece of paper was about to change his son's life, and his own. The following Saturday, Etienne Marchand did something he hadn't done in years. He walked into a place without sending his assistant first. Julien's small hand was wrapped around his. The boy's braces clicked with every step, but there was a strange eagerness in his eyes. They stepped inside a converted warehouse, the home of Pa Libres. It was noisy. Children laughed. Music floated in the air. Wheelchairs rolled over the polished wooden floor. There were no uniforms here. Some children danced with one shoe on, some with none at all. Some moved with a limp, some used crutches. Others sat in chairs while their arms painted the air with rhythm. In the middle of it all, Amara was leading a line of children, her bare feet tapping a soft beat, her hands clapping out the rhythm. She didn't see Etienne at first, but when she did, she only gave him a small nod. Not surprise, not anger, just a quiet welcome. Etienne frowned. To him, it looked like chaos. But Amara must have read his thoughts. Every child knows the pattern, she said gently, walking over. We count in eights, we change on the fourth beat. It's structure, just not the kind you can see from the outside. Then a woman in glasses approached, smiling warmly. Dr. Elise Moreau, she said, shaking Etienne's hand. I study how movement changes the brain. These children aren't just dancing, they're rewiring their minds. Etienne's eyebrows rose. He'd heard of her work. In fact, he realized this was the same research proposal he'd once dismissed for being too idealistic. Amara watched him closely. Yes, she said quietly. I knew who you were that night at the restaurant, but I also knew you wouldn't listen unless you saw it yourself. For a moment, Etienne felt small. He'd been the obstacle, not the solution. Before he could reply, a commotion stirred near the entrance. A cluster of reporters had shown up. One cameraman pointed his lens at Julien. Mr. Marchand, a journalist called. Why are you here? Etienne opened his mouth, but at that exact moment, Julien did something no one expected. He unbuckled one of his braces, handed it to Amara, and took a shaky step forward. Then another, and another. The room went silent. Cameras clicked. In that moment, Etienne didn't see the cameras. He saw his son, proud, trembling, smiling. He turned to the press and spoke from the heart. I was wrong. I dismissed this program without understanding it. Today, I see its value. I will fund Pas Libres for the next 5 years, and we will build a permanent center here, under Amara's leadership. The children clapped. Amara just stood still, her eyes soft, but her lips didn't smile yet. The weeks that followed were a blur. Architects visited. Children sketched their dream studio on paper. Etienne sat with Dr. Moreau, learning words like neuroplasticity and motor pattern memory. Julien started joining the classes twice a week. Etienne often sat in the corner, his laptop closed for the first time in years. One evening, when they were the last two left, Amara finally spoke. Funding is not an apology, Etienne, she said quietly. He nodded. I know. I'm learning to do more than write checks. That night, he stayed to help stack the chairs and sweep the floor. Months later, the new Pas Libres Center opened its doors. Julien walked in with only one lightweight brace. He led the first routine, his head held high. Etienne clapped from the front row, tears in his eyes. The center had grown. 2 more branches had opened, and Amara was now recognized across the country. But for Etienne, the greatest success wasn't in the awards. It was in the evenings when Julien would climb into his lap, his legs tired from dancing, and simply rest there. Father and son, no cameras, no audience, just them. Because sometimes, the smallest step changes everything.